Conoce, educa. Aprender para actuar. Entre profes. Somos Educa Te Escucha.
We're welcome to please Gertrud Szamosi, a member of the Department of English Literature and Culture of the University of Pécs since 1990. She specializes in British, Scottish, Canadian, postcolonial, and diaspora literature and theory. Welcome, Gertrude. Welcome to Educa Te Escucha. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling absolutely wonderful. This is my second week in Peru and my first visit to any of the Latin American countries. I've been to North America so far and mainly in Europe. So this is a very unique and special experience, and I enjoy every minute of it.
Awesome. So we're going to start with the interview, and the first question is, what inspired you to start teaching these topics at university levels?
Well, I always liked to read as a child. That was my hobby, and I was reading day and night. So literature was an obvious choice. And then we're talking about my childhood in the 1960s. So it was like Hungary it wasn't easy to travel abroad, but it was the period of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, so British and American pop culture. And we annoyed our teachers in the English class because we always asked what these songs meant. At the time, there was no, it was even difficult to get the lyrics.
Okay.
And these poor teachers who were not native speakers of English had a real struggle with trying to understand what sometimes the slang words were. So, I think English was becoming very popular at the time, and literature is because I like to read so much.
That's awesome. And we heard you teach a course in diaspora. What made you to teach that subject at the university?
So I mainly teach or only teach English-speaking cultures. And in the British context, Britain had the empire in the past, and these so-called post-colonial literatures, which are from the former colonies, were my first interest because it always showed the perspective of the other, of the different cultures, how they looked at the English. And then diaspora is with mass migration. There is more and more people, multicultural communities in these main countries, in these main cultural centers. And I think the diaspora always brings a new perspective, new attitude, and it kind of shows a mirror image which can be critical and which can always give a different perspective for people coming from the mainstream culture. And for me, that is always interesting, looking at cultural differences.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and that's a course like everyone should take at least once in her life. And how did you come across the scholarships and grants you've received? Like, was the application challenging for you?
Well, this is a new connection we have with UPC, because my university and UPC, they are member of the so-called Compostela organization just for the last few years. And obviously, I mean, it was a great opportunity to come here and visit this university. And I mean, ideally, I would have liked to visit an English department, but since my program is also a teacher training program, I thought it was a good choice to visit the pedagogical or the educational department.
Yeah, I agree with that last part. And what kind of requirements or qualifications that you need to meet to be considered for like those opportunities you've had?
I mean, for the staff, because we have got this opportunity open for students as well. I mean, currently we have one student, a Hungarian student at UPC, and there's also a UPC student at my university. Actually, she is doing her second semester because she liked it so much that she decided to stay. I can give you some information about this scholarship program.
That would be perfect and awesome.
And as for staff members, I think it's important, or it's good, and it's a priority if you have an international experience, and you can make use of that wherever you go.
Yeah.
So
I think everyone should have like an exchange experience, because I think it's really like important, and you learn a lot from like other countries, because it's like a big view of like something you don't live in. And what motivated you to pursue those certifications in art therapy and social therapy alongside your academic work?
So I think they are very close to, I mean, any art, and again, literature is my main field. It can be therapeutic in a sense that it helps to understand yourself, and it helps to connect to other people. Like in terms of literature, I usually use poems, because poems always evoke feelings. And usually with images. So I always tell the students to just close their eyes when they hear a poem, and just try to imagine or just observe whatever images come up. And then we also, the second activity would be that they start drawing these images.
What they see.
And then we share that. So everybody, they look at the other's drawing and they give their own ideas, and then the other person also shares what made them, why they made these images. And then through that, very often we also have personal content coming up, and then obviously a classroom context is different from being a psychologist or whatever, but very often students are happy to share some personal connections. And I also been doing this with international students, and again, it's very it helps to break those barriers which are often there, the cultural or the language barriers, because these images are very often universal, or they can just more easily relate to one another with the help of them. So I quite enjoy doing this.
I think it's like a really important topic. It's not always talked about, or not always take into consideration, like poems or arts in general. I think it's a really pretty topic to work on, and it's not always given the value it deserves. So I like your work in that. Could you tell us a bit about your research that brought you here? Like, what are you currently focusing on? What are you researching for?
So I'm more, my main area of research is literature. So I'm not really focusing on that here, but I was looking for something more simple and straightforward, like the introduction to Latin American culture, and just observing differences between our educational system and your educational system. And the most obvious one was that in Hungary, secondary school ends at 18 or 19. So education is compulsory until 16.
16, 17, yeah.
But in my country, but actually you can only get your secondary school degree when you are 18 or 19, depending on when you started. So what I saw here, even when I go to the university or look at people working, is that there are many young faces.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have 16 years old students at universities. So that is a kind of structural difference. But I've only visited one school so far, a private school, not religious, St. Margaret, but it's not a religious school, English classes. And that was very, very close to what we are doing. And I was actually quite impressed how motivated the children were. Their English was very good, and the personal way that the teachers were treating them, and the parents. I mean, it would never happen in Hungary, like what I observed, that parents came to pick up the children and they were kissing the teacher, and so we in Hungary we're more formal. We wouldn't kiss so much, which I thought again is to your advantage, that it's nicer.
So you were talking about the difference you've saw so far, and you've talked about like here we go to college like really young. Most of us can enter at 16, and the rest at 17. And you've been at a class of us. What are the difference like in the class or in the like academic system you see between Peru and Hungary?
Yeah, it's. I think it's changing a lot in Hungary as well. That they are trying to become more focusing not just on teaching, information, and testing and being very academic, but I think the personal dimension is becoming more important. And it's also because we students seem to have more stress-related problems these days, and I think the education system is trying to cope with that or help the students. So we have now more interactive classes, just similarly to what I experienced here. So I think they are comparable, and but it's still, I don't know, because I'm visiting, but it felt a lot more relaxed here than back
That's
home.
how we are. So that's it. We're so pleased to have you here. Thank you so much for being part of Educa Te Escucha, and we were so happy to receive you here, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Y esto fue Educa Te Escucha. Si deseas seguir al tanto de nuestras próximas entrevistas, no dudes en suscribirte, activar la campanita de notificaciones y visitar nuestra cuenta de Instagram, donde encontrarás más contenido de Educa Te Escucha.